The Heavenly Kingdom, the reality of Mirak's world. The following essay is from the creation of civilization and picked up a suitable one for a new year. The Kingdom of Heaven. I have written about science and religion one after another, and now I am going to write about the last one, heaven. However, this essay is unprecedented in the true sense of the word, and is a basis for the design of the civilized world. So I would like you to read it with that in mind. However, if you are reading this for the first time, you may think that it is just an idealistic theory that is too far removed from reality. But this is not the case. In the first place, the basic condition for building heaven on earth, the purpose of the Lord God, is to represent the reality of nature as it is, above all else. This is because, as I have always said, the sun, moon, and earth are the fundamental constituents of all things in the universe. And since this essence is fire, water, and earth, it is through the power of this Trinity that all things are created and nurtured, and the world is achieving infinite development. Until today, however, the spiritual world has been night, as I have often said, and the day has been hidden. In other words, the order was moon, earth, and sun. Of course, this is not the correct order, so the world until now has been lacking in harmony and has become disordered, revealing the hell world as we see it today. This is because the friction between good and evil was necessary. As I explained earlier, and this is nothing but the profound will of God. During that period, there are some things that were eased by religions, but the Buddha's words of suffering and resignation and Christ's words of atonement and love of neighbor were all part of that meaning. By the way, when I talk about the conversion of the night world into the day world, the original principle of the universe was that the three stages of sun, moon, and earth were the correct order. But this was not the case because of the aforementioned meaning. In other words, this is a 180-degree turn in the world, a truly unprecedented event. Therefore, not only will the current form of culture be transformed, but also as a general outline, since the form of nature will be as described above. All mechanisms will be divided into 3 levels, and then divide into 6, and then divide into 9. In other words, it is 36 and 9. Now, let me explain in detail what the world of mirak is like. The reality of the world of mirak. The borders of the nations of the world will remain as they are today, but in effect they will be as if they were abolished. In other words, since power over neighboring countries would be equal, there would be no need for aggression, rather than absolutely no aggression. There are 2 types of aggression: unavoidable aggression and unavoidable aggression. In the former case, for example, a country's population is increasing and its land area is becoming smaller and smaller, so it must find a place for its overpopulation, and if no country is willing to accept it, it must do so by any means necessary. If there is no country that is willing to accept it, then it will have to be done by any means necessary. This is why we have no choice but to resort to war. The reason is that there are many countries in the world that have a vast wilderness and a thin population. So even if there is a country like Japan with a small land area and an overpopulation, it can be easily solved. This is because there is a world parliament where any issue is passed after careful deliberation. Of course, since there is no such thing as the selfishness of today's self-centeredness, as long as any bill is correct, it will be passed amicably, and the overpopulation, no matter how many tens of thousands a year, will be distributed fairly to each nation, and there will be no room for conflict. This was the world parliament of mirak's time, but even so, each country would have its own parliament. But unlike today, the quality of the members would be excellent, and everything would be resolved on a global and human basis, without self-interest. For this reason, the meeting will be held only once every 3 months, and each meeting will last only about 3 half-days each. There is another reason for this. the number of laws will be very small. Needless to say, laws are not necessary for good people, but only for evil people, and it is only natural that this would be the case in a world without evil people. If we look at the current parliament with this in mind, we can frankly say that it is a meeting place of cultural barbarians. Here, I would like to describe the world parliament from a different aspect, the world state that is being advocated in the United States these days. Thus, the world parliament can be thought of as a global expansion of today's parliament. Of course, the leader at the center of the world parliament will be the same as today's president, i.e., the world president. The term of office is 3 years, and of course, a selection committee member is chosen from among the members of each country in the world to elect the president, and the selection committee member is allocated to the number of population of the country. In other words, this is the world parliament. The latter is an aggressor, but in that era, since the countries of the world no longer have armed forces, war is no longer possible, and there is no need to write about it, since all the population can be adjusted rationally and peacefully as mentioned above.